Anchor. But starting tomorrow, you guys will see Rhiannon Alley, who is the new World News Now and America This Morning co-anchor. So stay tuned. And again, I'll still be with ABC. No worries.
It's Monday, August 22nd. If Donald Trump wanted to be unchained, well, he's not getting his wish yet. We start here. In an exclusive interview, the top Republican on the January 6th committee says she has no problem splitting the GOP.
But it's possible you'd ask him before wrapping up to testify.
Yeah.
What it means for the midterms and for investigations into the former president. The bomb looked like it was meant for a supporter of the Russian invasion. Instead, it killed his daughter.
Reportedly killed in this very suspicious, very dramatic car bomb.
Could this war be spiraling outside of Ukraine? And stop canceling flights last minute, or Pete Buttigieg will cancel you.
If you don't act, we're going to put new rules and regulations and force you to act.
After an ultimatum from the federal government, airline carriers are scrambling for a new flight plan. From ABC News, this is Start Here. I'm Brad Milkey. In American politics, you've probably heard the phrase red meat before, as in a topic that gets your supporters super riled up. And the thing about red meat is it tastes really good in the moment, but over time, overdoing it can lead to complications.
Sources telling ABC News the search is related to allegations the former president improperly removed documents when he left the White House.
When President Trump announced the FBI had raided his home, that became the ultimate piece of political red meat for his supporters.
I'm here to save the country.
Trump supporters caravanned to Mar-a-Lago Tuesday, showing their support for the former president after the raid.
President Trump is investigated because they're scared that he's running, and he will win again.
In the week since, Trump's approval rating within the GOP has actually risen. He's even more of a favorite to take the nomination if he runs. And yet this weekend, when asked about the possibility of Republicans dominating in the midterm elections, Minority Leader Mitch McConnell did not sound very optimistic.
There's probably a greater likelihood the House flips than the Senate. Senate races are just different. They're statewide. Candidate quality has a lot to do with the outcome.
So what gives? Well, that's the thing about red meat, right? Trump's most diehard supporters are very fired up right now. But overall, polls show a majority of the country sees this investigation as legitimate. The issues animating primary voters are not necessarily the same issues that will decide November. And because of the diehards, traditional Republican candidates like Liz Cheney in Wyoming are out the door. So will that weaken what was expected to be a red wave?
What does your defeat say about Trump's hold on the Republican Party?
I think, one, it says that people continue to believe the lie. They continue to believe what he's saying, which is very dangerous.
Yesterday, ABC's chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl got an exclusive interview with Liz Cheney, and the conversation said a lot about where the larger debates are about to be within the party. John is with us now from a windy road in Virginia. He's never not on the move, so we're going to hope this connection holds. John, Liz Cheney said in the wake of her primary loss that she wants to dedicate the next phase of her political career to keeping Trump out of office. Did she tell you how she plans to do that?
She's starting a political organization. She's going to be able to raise, and already has raised, significant money. She wasn't specific on exactly how she's going to do that in the short term. So this is obviously not the end. This is a new beginning for you. You're starting this political organization. What can you tell us? What are you going to do?
I'm going to be very focused on working to ensure that we do everything we can not to elect election deniers.
And I asked her specifically, does that mean you'll be supporting people running against Republicans, including your Republican colleagues in the House? And she said definitively and without hesitation, yes. Is the country better or worse off if Kevin McCarthy is the next Speaker of the House?
Well, my views about Kevin McCarthy are very clear. The Speaker of the House is the second in line for the presidency. It requires somebody who understands and recognizes their duty, their oath, their obligation, and he's been completely unfaithful to the Constitution.
For the midterms, she's going to be supporting some Democrats, some Republicans as well. The big question, of course, is will she run for president? She's been clear that she is thinking about running for president.
Any decision that I make about doing something that significant and that serious would be with the intention of winning and because I think I would be the best candidate.
Would your path be inside the Republican Party or outside the Republican Party?
I haven't made any specific decisions or plans about that at this point.
So running as an independent is a possibility. It's one of the things you're thinking
I'm
about.
not going to go down that path anymore in terms of speculating.
And she's absolutely not ruling it out. So I truly think she hasn't made up her mind on this and is leaving open the possibility both of trying to be the anti-Trump candidate in a Republican primary. And should that fail, possibly running as an independent.
In the meantime, John, she's not just the face of kind of the anti-Trump movement within the Republican Party. She's also one of the faces of the January 6th committee. What is next for the way she helps run? She's not the chair, but she's the co-chair. What is the next for the way she helps run that committee? Is there a chance we see Mike Pence? Is there a chance we see Donald Trump there?
She clearly wants to run through the tape. Obviously, her time in Congress will expire at the end of the year. If Republicans take over, that committee completely disappears at the end of the year. She wants to continue and to really go out, I think, with a bang. I asked her about Pence because obviously Mike Pence recently said that he would consider it if he was invited. So you think we'll see him here in September in this room before the committee?
I would hope that he will understand how important it is for the American people to know every aspect of the truth about what happened that day.
She made it clear he has been invited. They are in discussions with his counsel, and she thinks that he should testify before the committee. And the bigger question is Trump himself. What about Trump before you wrap up? Will you ask him to testify?
I don't want to make any announcements about that this morning. So let me just leave it there.
But it's possible you'd ask him before wrapping up to testify.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
She said she didn't want to give away deliberations before the committee, but it sure seemed to me like it is a real possibility that they end up issuing a subpoena for Donald Trump to appear before that committee.
Yeah, if you're saying I don't want to give away deliberations, it sounds like deliberations might have begun in some way.
It absolutely means that there are deliberations underway. And she said that all of Trump's interactions with the committee would have to be under oath. So it sounds to me like they are talking about this, and it's a real possibility that they would subpoena him. Now, whether or not he would actually come, I mean, this is somebody who just took the Fifth Amendment, hundreds of times in that civil case in New York. It's hard for me to imagine Donald Trump being willing to go before that committee to raise his right hand and to swear to tell the truth. But, it sounds like the committee may dare him.
Hey, the last question, John, is what happens with potential criminal charges, right? Are they planning on bringing charges against anyone in the Trump orbit? And legally speaking, search warrants don't necessarily equal indictments, right? You could get a court order for a search warrant, not find anything, no one ever gets arrested, whatever. But if you're Merrick Garland, I'm just trying to think of how politically explosive this was, would you really approve a search of a former president's home, not being sure if a crime had been committed, not being sure if you would ever bring charges? Like, I guess I'm wondering, in Washington, are there more shoes to drop? And do more moderate Republicans like Liz Cheney trust the DOJ to drop them?
Well, first on that question, Liz Cheney is outraged at her Republican colleagues that have vilified and attacked the FBI.
I, was disgusted when I learned that President Trump had released the names of those agents when he released the unredacted search warrant, and that has now caused violence. We've seen threats of violence. The judge himself, his synagogue had to cancel services because of threats of violence. This is a really dangerous moment.
I said, well, the point of their attacks is they believe that the FBI, that Merrick Garland, that Joe Biden are acting politically here, that this was a politically motivated raid, that they don't believe that Biden didn't know about it, had nothing to do with it. Are you entirely confident that there was no political motivation behind this by the Biden administration or by the Attorney General?
I've seen no evidence that there was any political motivation.
She seems to have confidence in the way Garland has handled it. And, now we're all waiting to see if this affidavit is going to be released. This would be the affidavit that was filed to get the judge to sign off on the search warrant. But I take your point. This is a huge step. They went to the, Trump's home. They seized, it would seem to be virtually truckloads worth of information. It's hard to imagine that at the end of this, they just say, never mind. But, we'll see. Talk about uncharted territory. The idea of the Biden administration prosecuting Donald Trump, who may well be running against Joe Biden in 2024. I mean, we've never seen anything remotely like this.
All right, Jonathan Karl getting the exclusive with Liz Cheney on the road with Start Here. Thanks so much, buddy.
You got it, Brad.
Next up on Start Here, he's been publicly rooting to invade Ukraine, and his daughter was just killed in Russia. We're back in a bit.
Take America's #1 news with you anywhere you go, anytime, free. Download the ABC News app now. Breaking news, exclusives, 24/7. There for you with one touch. The ABC News app. Download it now.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
It was an extraordinary story.
A computer salesman was supposed to report to prison to begin a 17-year sentence.
They let him turn himself into jail with no escort.
No one thought he would run.
How do you evade capture for 25 years? How do you do that?
Now, join the search, following the U.S. Marshals as they uncover new leads in a global manhunt. Can you help catch this fugitive?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man? Listen and join the all-new hunt wherever you get your podcasts.
National parks are incredibly safe places, but crime will happen.
My wife had fallen. She's in really critical condition.
At that time, I thought it was just a tragic accident.
There's still a lot of questions we need to ask.
There were small things that didn't totally add up.
This is 2 lives for Harold that have died now. I was shocked. Something's not right.
Zoo!
200!
Oh, 200.
200 episodes of Dr. Pol. Music to my ears.
It's been 10 years, and I'm still having fun.
That rocks. He's got the moves that make your animals groove.
Now we do the dance of joy. Yay!
He's like the Justin Bieber of the
Headlining the hottest barns.
Shout out.
It's a show you won't want to miss.
I'm not going to be here forever. Maybe.
The Incredible Dr. Pol. New episodes Saturdays at 9 on Nat Geo Wild.
The hottest views in daytime are happening right here.
We talk about things on this show that people don't talk about.
That I can't wait to see.
Honest takes from strong women.
We need all hands on deck, and we need it right now.
This is the time to speak out. Unafraid to get real.
We stick by our points of view.
We're all seeing it differently, and that's the beauty of The View.
And that's why the most watched #1 daytime talk show is The View. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
Now streaming on ABC News Live 2020. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues. The Hunt. True crime 2020. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
The battle for Ukraine has been mainly fought in, well, Ukraine. When you're in a defensive posture, you want the borders to stay right where they are. Why would you go outside of them? But at some points in this war, we've seen attacks against Russian troops in Crimea and even on Russian soil.
Explosions rocked a major Russian airbase in Crimea, which is legally part of Ukraine, but Russia considers it to be part of its territory.
It's not always clear who's been behind these attacks, but this weekend, a different kind of explosion took place, something that looked less like an act of war and more like an attempted assassination. It's not clear at all this was Ukraine, but regardless of who did it, a young woman is now dead, and she happens to be the daughter of one of the strongest supporters of Russia's invasion. ABC's foreign correspondent Britt Klena is in Kyiv right now, but Britt, this happened right near Russia's own capital, right? What do we know about this attack?
Absolutely. And it's a rare case of it happening like near Moscow, like near the capital. This was the daughter of a very close Putin ally, Alexander Dugin, reportedly killed in this very suspicious, very dramatic car bomb.
The 29-year-old daughter of an outspoken Russian nationalist killed her father, a strong supporter of the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
You know, her family said she borrowed her father's car, suggesting kind of he was the target originally, and she ended up kind of obviously bearing the brunt of this.
Dugina publicly backed her father's position and expressed support for Russia's intervention in Ukraine on state TV.
Now, let's go into the details of the father. He is a staunch supporter of the war in Ukraine. He's right-wing. He's an ultra-nationalist.
I always believed, and I believe in the future greatness of Russia. It's our dream, not to rule the world, but to be recognized as one center of decisions with others. So
he was kind of known as Putin's brain in some ways, but his influence in policy in Russia isn't so clear. His ideology is influential on Putin. So he's someone that Putin kind of looks up to, but he's not necessarily, he doesn't have an ear on the day-to-day operations of policy or how Putin operates.
I know it's early stages, but is there a sense of whether the Ukrainians would have done this, or like Ukrainian sympathizers? Who did this?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, but so far Ukrainians are denying accusations that they're responsible for any part of this attack. And it's important to point out that Ukraine so far hasn't been known to attack Russian targets or, even carry out assassinations outside of its territory. That's not to say that there is some kind of change in this war here, that yes, they want Russia to be scared. They want to show that they have the abilities to strike Russia where it hurts beyond the territory that it controls right now. And that's what we've seen with his repeated attacks in Crimea recently too. This comes, Brad, at a really sensitive time here in Ukraine. We are just a few days away from Ukrainian Independence Day, which also happens to be 6 months to the day that Russia invaded. So, we've just learnt that state employees have been advised to stay away from central Kyiv on these days as a precaution. So the timeliness of this is also very important.
The other thing you've been reporting on, Britt, in the last week are these kind of escalating concerns about battles around nuclear power plants, which sounds like just a horrible idea. What are the chief concerns at this moment? Where does that stand?
Absolutely. I mean, you're telling me. We were just in Zaporizhia, not too far, about 30 miles from that nuclear power plant, which has been under threat for weeks. We've been reporting on this. And there are concerns over that plant and the fighting there, because it is still going on and it is intensifying. Just on Friday, we heard that Russia was telling its own workers not to turn up. So there was this heightened security risk. And we spoke actually to one of the plant's engineers while he was on his break in Zaporizhia.
Every day they get closer and closer.
He was telling us that if the storage facility, that spent fuel storage facility, is hit because it's not shielded properly, he says it might well be another Chernobyl. It's terrifying. And we went to Chernobyl 2 weeks ago and it's still deserted. I mean, that place is so eerie, and it really is a timely reminder of what is at stake in Zaporizhia or any of these nuclear power plants that could end in some kind of catastrophe. So the stakes are extremely high. I mean, no one wants to think about it, but of course, this public health risk goes far beyond Ukraine.
Yeah, bizarre to think about how much shelling is happening in that area already and how it could get even worse, right? Especially when Russia was withdrawing its own people. The obvious question was, would Russia actually consider striking a nuclear power plant? Britt Glennet in Kyiv. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Brad.
I was at an airport a while back. I was early, I was having a little snack, and I noticed this line forming at one of the airline's customer service desks. And over the course of the next hour, everyone stayed exactly where they were. No one had been helped. The worker who was in charge of this desk is on the phone, clearly waiting on hold with whatever office she's praying can help her rebook these people. Welcome to flying in 2022. It's become so unpredictable, so delay-prone, that late last week, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg himself got involved.
The Department of Transportation putting airlines on notice, saying fix your problems or new rules are coming.
Cut to this morning, and all eyes are on the airlines, wondering whether this is a moment where they're about to scale back lots and lots of flights. ABC's Sam Sweeney covers aviation. Sam, first of all, how bad has it gotten really? Because I get everyone gets upset when their flights get delayed, but people who fly often say this is unlike anything they've ever seen. Are they right?
They are right. It's horrible. And the situation that you just explained is happening in airports all across the country, almost on a weekly, if not daily basis. In that letter that Pete Buttigieg sent to 10 airline CEOs, he says that 24% of all flights were delayed in the first 6 months of this year. 3% of them were canceled. We're talking about thousands of flights, and oftentimes it's hitting over those busy holiday weekends like Memorial Day or July 4th.
There are some things you can't control, like weather, but there are a lot of things that the airlines can and should control to make sure that they can service the tickets that they're selling.
And now the airlines need to act because the federal government is really sounding an alarm saying, if you don't act, we're going to put new rules and regulations and force you to act.
Yeah, this was described sort of as an ultimatum to the airlines. What are they being told?
They're saying, don't schedule flights if you don't have crews available.
It's time to under schedule, or at least get our schedules back to something that maybe isn't quite as aggressive, so that way they can operate an on-time airline.
As we all know, there is a major pilot shortage right now, and across every industry, staffing is hard. So you're talking about airport staff, TSA staff, flight attendants, and of course, pilots. So if you don't have a crew there, you better not schedule a flight, forcing you to cancel that flight when it gets closer to departure.
Wait, is that what happens? People, why would you schedule? Are flights scheduled without having a crew or a pilot in place? How does this usually work?
Well, airlines schedule their flights roughly a year out, and they all expected to have these staffing problems resolved or greatly improved. And as we've seen, it's been a struggle to get people on board and into jobs.
We're also looking at their staffing levels that have, frankly, not been keeping up with the needs. Remember, a lot of taxpayer support went to these airlines in the last couple of years to prevent layoffs.
And it is notoriously difficult to staff up airlines because of all of the security checks and the training that goes in. And there's only a limited amount of training classrooms and simulators that they can use.
In some cases at American, they laid off pilots and they didn't keep them current. So they didn't keep us trained. That caused a backlog to begin last summer. And now that they're hiring with regular mandatory retirements, they have not caught up in training.
So again, it's difficult to get these people in place, and the airlines really overbook themselves. And now the government is saying, you need to make sure that you have the staff. And that's what the airlines are now doing.
Yeah, is that going to happen? Are they going to be able to staff themselves up or cancel? Like, what do they do?
The airlines are nervous. You know, if they're looking over toward the EU, where it's very customer friendly and you are paid out for delayed flights or canceled flights, and the airlines don't want those regulations to come to them. So they're saying, look, you know, we also have a vested interest in getting planes to their destinations, people from point A to point B. That's why we're here. That's why we're in business. So they're scaling back. American Airlines alone is going to cut roughly 1,200 flights a day from its fall schedule in October and November. That's more than 30,000 flights in November alone that they're going to cut back. Wow. Delta and United also cutting just under 1,000 flights a day. So they're going to have padding in place, more airplanes and more staff ready to go if and when they need them. For example, during some sort of a weather event that has forced flights to either cancel or be greatly delayed and planes stuck in one part of the country, they're going to have planes ready to go with pilots and flight attendants fully staffed.
Bottom line is this: passengers expect and deserve to be treated fairly and well by airlines. That's what we're looking for. And we stand ready to help consumers if they are concerned that they're not being treated well.
And one thing that the federal government is doing that was outlined in this letter from Pete Buttigieg is they are rolling out a website in early September that will show travelers who are affected by delayed or canceled flights exactly what they are entitled to when it comes to compensation.
He asked airlines, quote, at a minimum to provide meal vouchers for delays of 3 hours or more, and lodging accommodations for passengers who must wait overnight at an airport because of disruptions within the carrier's control.
Obviously, if your flight is delayed because of a snowstorm or another weather event, then that's not the airline's fault. But if it's a maintenance issue or they don't have pilots, it's a crew scheduling issue, that website will tell you exactly what you are entitled to.
And I'm still just blown away by that number you told me a second ago, that 1,000 flights a day for each of these airlines on average. Just way less supply in the air, so you wonder how that is going to affect demand and prices going forward. Could prices rise significantly with fewer flights? Sam Sweeney from our transportation unit. Thank you.
Thank you.
And one last thing. Remember the song Rhythm Nation by Janet Jackson? It's all about building each other up. But recently, a top Microsoft engineer said this song, through no fault of its own, actually used to have a knack for breaking computers.
But why this song? Like, does Windows not like this song?
That's Raymond Chen speaking to Microsoft's in-house documentation team.
But the weirdest thing was that if you played this song, it not only crashed the laptop that was playing it, it also crashed a laptop that was sitting next to it that wasn't playing the song at all.
So here's what was happening. This did not have to do with super stealth computer viruses. This had to do with vibrations, sound waves. You might have seen video of this bridge called the Tacoma Narrows Bridge back in 1940 on the day wind was making it sway at the exact wrong frequency.
Only a 35-mile-an-hour wind is blowing, but this apparently sets up a rhythmic swinging of the bridge, which increases with each swing.
These vibrations piled up on top of each other so much that a sway became a wobble became a collapse.
Finally, the swinging road and the suspension cables give way and plunge into the water below.
So how does that connect to Janet Jackson? Well, after Windows XP came out a couple decades ago, many hard drives had this wheel inside of them that spun around at 5,400 RPM. That is its frequency. At one point, Rhythm Nation hits this note that has its own particular resonant frequency. And mashed together, these waves were piling up, throwing entire hard drives out of whack. Raymond Chen did not reveal which laptops used to be affected by this or which part of the song caused the glitch. But the reason he said he was sharing this piece of laptop lore was to show how far engineers were willing to go to fix it.
So the manufacturer had to write a special audio filter that detected these frequencies and filtered them out before they came out the speaker and crashed the hard drive.
And that's why Rhythm Nation and the tech world are still able to coexist in harmony. I'm just glad that my voice hasn't done this with your phone or shattered any of your glasses in your home at this point. Start here tomorrow. Hit that follow button for a new episode every morning. I'm Brad Milkey. See you tomorrow.
It was an extraordinary story.
A computer salesman was supposed